Okay, good evening. It's the 22nd of February 2018. I am Paul Glumaz with LaRouche, and this is the General Welfare Presents program. Okay, so uh, I'll start with a little history. Um, we have been ruled by an oligarchy that has created government and banking and finance and culture to serve them, not to serve the people. So you have essentially, very basically, two kinds of government. You have a government that's there to serve the people in whatever form it is, whether it's a monarchy or a, a parliament or a Congress or a presidency or whatever form it is. If it's there to serve the general welfare of the population in general, it has to follow certain uh, orientation. So you have a difference in U.S. history between government, which promotes the general welfare, and just government, which keeps law and order. There's two different. The government, which just keeps law and order, is keeping law and order for whom? It's not responsible for promoting the general welfare. It's not to say that the government that promotes the general welfare is also not concerned with keeping law and order. But if the purpose of government is just to keep law and order, so that you have a legal system where people can do whatever they want, as long as it's not breaking the law, that is the system generally that an oligarchy prefers, where you have rules, and you have winners and you have losers, and the government serves to keep law and order for them. This is Locke. This is the social contract. Whereas Benjamin Franklin and Hamilton, the government is there to promote the development. It's active. It intervenes. It intervenes in supporting science. It intervenes in supporting the development of agriculture. It intervenes into creating a space program. It intervenes in promoting the private sector. It intervenes in every which way you can imagine to increase the potential of the society to be productive. But that's a violation of the social contract, right? Of Locke, which means we have a contract between uh, the people who run the society to obey certain laws and end pillaging, or at least end have a system of laws, have a system of rule. Now you got to have a system of laws, but the question is, what is the purpose of government? And their purpose of government is not to interfere, not to promote the development of a nation, but to leave that to whoever is in charge, whoever has power, whoever is whatever. Now that is the preferred system of government for an oligarchy. An oligarchy should not view is that the government should not demand of them that their wealth and their power be harnessed for the good of the nation. It should be up to them voluntarily if they want to do that. But there should be no compelling force that says, because you have become wealthy, you've become powerful because of our society. Therefore, you should be bound by that reality to contribute a large portion of your benefit to the future of the society. That's not good. That's socialism or communism or whatever. but that's the distinction that we have in terms of government. Now, oligarchies that we're living under right now, the oligarchy that's been running the world more or less is the British East India Company oligarchy that emerges from the British East India Company in 1763 and extends into Wall Street, the cartels, the City of London, and so forth. That oligarchy has taken over the United States, the culture, the politics, the financial structure, and has pretty much taken over the world up until recently. And this oligarchy is now facing the end of its existence because of China's Belt and Road. Because China, the purpose of government is to serve the people, to develop the nation, to develop humanity, to develop the world. What other purpose should you have for government? Well, that's not right. That's interference. That's interference in my liberty. You're interfering with my liberty if you tax me to promote the development of the country. You're interfering with my liberty. That's my money. It doesn't matter how you got the money. It's my money. You have no right to tax it, other than to provide for law and order. So we have two different concepts of government here. And the purpose of government is to promote the general welfare. Now, President Trump said to a bunch of congressmen when they were discussing the question of infrastructure, several senators, a week ago last Friday, he said, look, we have spent $7 trillion in the Middle East. Worse than worthless. $7 trillion since we went into Iraq. $7 trillion. And yet when we want to build a bridge or a tunnel or a railroad, we can't get the money. It can't be done. You figure. Now, I'm figuring that government is okay to extend military power, to spend $7 trillion in the Middle East. For what purpose? To maintain a world order. An world order for the oligarchy. Now, that's okay. Creating massive refugee problems, financing terrorism, creating war all over the planet, that's okay. Because it serves the interests of an oligarchy. That's not government interference. That's government maintaining the empire. That's government working for the empire. $7 trillion. Well, why couldn't we have put $7 trillion? We could have. The Federal Reserve created the money. Why couldn't we have put the $7 trillion in completely rebuilding the United States? Well, we can't do that. That's a violation of your freedom. We can't impinge upon your freedom by transforming the United States into the next level of industrial development instead of watching our infrastructure collapse, our society collapse. That's not That you can't do that. That's socialism. That's communism. We got to balance the budgets. We got to cut people's entitlements. Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell. We got to kill off all these worthless, useless eaters by cutting off their entitlements. So we got a real problem here. So Trump said to these Democrats, like Sherrod Brown and Blumenthal from Connecticut, he said to them, okay, give me an alternative program. Give me a program. And I'll take the heat for a gasoline tax, increasing the gasoline tax to finance it. Which means what? It means Wall Street isn't going to finance it. Because Wall Street isn't going to finance anything that they can't rip off. Okay? Wall Street isn't going to finance it. The Federal Reserve is telling Trump, you're not going to have any infrastructure program because we're not going to because that's going to mess up things. Right? It's going to mess up things. It's going to mess up the financial system if you put all that money in infrastructure. Why? Why is it going to mess up the financial system? Because that money has to go to sustain the financial system, which is hopelessly bankrupt. And we're giving out 0% interest rates to keep it afloat. We can't be putting money in infrastructure. No, we're following the rules of free market economics. Adam Smith, Jeremy Bentham, John Stuart Mill, and more modernly, what's his name? Milton Friedman. Those guys. The monetarists, John Maynard Keynes. We're not here. We'll increase the money supply, but it's not going to go to build anything. It's going to go to roll over the debt and bail out the financial system. So that's where we are. What kind of government do you want? Do you want a government that they control for the purposes of keeping law and order? Keeping the poor people down, keeping the third world down, keeping China from industrializing the planet, keeping China from continuing to get hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Well, that's not right. That's wrong. We can't do that. You can't let that happen. That's a violation of our order, of our oligarchical order. That's an oligarchy. And they have created a culture for us which distracts us from anything real, which destroys our minds, destroys our children, destroys our society. The shootings in Florida, the school shootings, that's a manifestation of our culture, our death-worshiping culture. We're putting out video games and videos all over the place for these children, and they're being hardwired. And this governor of Kentucky did a pretty good job of explaining it to a reporter who was very upset with him. And people should watch that. But this oligarchy is not new. This oligarchy is a revival. Came out of the Dutch Amsterdam financial structure, which came out of the Venetian financial structure, which 500 years after Rome came out of Rome and Venice, and which Rome came out of the experiments of Persia and Babylonia. But an oligarchy always rules through an empire. It always rules on the basis of not the general welfare of the people, but it always rules on the basis of an oligarchy. And an oligarchy maintains control by manipulating the population and manipulating the conflicts, manipulating everything, so that the issue of the general welfare never comes up, or if it does, the persons who bring it up, whether it's a Martin Luther King or a Kennedy or an FDR or Henry Wallace or Lyndon LaRouche or even a Donald Trump, if he does that, if make America great again, brings up the issue of the general welfare, you're going to come down on them real hard. You have to come down on them real hard, because that's not permitted. We do not permit the discussion and promotion of the preamble to the U.S. Constitution, in which there is, in order to promote the general welfare for ourselves and our posterity, we do create this Constitution. What's the purpose of the Constitution? To promote the general welfare for ourselves and our posterity. Oh, no. That's just an introduction to the Constitution. No. Somebody stuck that in there. That's not really the Constitution. The Constitution is just a text of. There is no intention in the Constitution. It's not, and don't read any intention into the Constitution, because then that's not the Constitution. You're reading into the Constitution. The Constitution is not about the general welfare. It's about a set of laws. It's about the separation of powers. But there's no intention. There's no concept or principle that to which the Constitution is held to. No. That's communism. That's socialism, or that's whatever, So that's what we're dealing with. And those elements in the Democratic Party that have hitherto in the past been associated with the tradition of FDR, they're no longer there. They are there. They've lost it. The Democratic Party has gone absolutely stark raving mad with this whole Russia gate, Russia gate, and it's not going away. It's getting worse, and the population is getting fed up with all of this. And the population in the rest of the world is getting fed up with having the United States sponsor terrorist attacks all over the world. They're getting fed up with that sort of stuff. The United States has lost total credibility in the world at this point. There's no point in our having troops all over the world. The United States needs to regroup. It needs to adopt policies that promote the development of the United States, starting with the 4 laws of Lyndon LaRouche. Break up the banks, bank separation, and then issue the credit. You could issue the credit any number of ways and start massive reconstruction, massive rebuilding, scientific, technological progress, and export this to the rest of the world through. And the Belt and Road and what China's doing will perfectly accommodate a massively expanding United States. We don't have to compete with China. China, if we develop the manufacturers, we don't have to compete with China, because they don't have enough to production, even though they're powerful. They have 1.4 billion people. They don't have enough production to do the development that is being promoted. So we can be part of that. And we could leapfrog. The United States could leapfrog economically. And within a generation could get rid of all these drugs, could get rid of all this depression and people committing suicide and massacring children in the schools, and all of this can be, we could end all of that. And we could have a future. And people are fed up with all of this. They're fed up with all of this. And so that's why this is a very interesting time, because the media is not succeeding in convincing the population of whatever crap they're putting out there anymore. And then they're getting hysterical. The New York Times had an editorial which said that Donald Trump doesn't recognize that Russia attacked the United States during the election, which is the worst attack since Pearl Harbor, and therefore he's not defending the country. And then they come up with these 13 indictments of these so-called troll farm in this stupid building in Russia, and these guys were actually working for the CIA. A bunch of them were working for the CIA back in the 2014 when it first came out that there was a troll farm. Meanwhile, the media gave Donald Trump $6 billion worth of free negative publicity. You want to know who elected Trump? It was the negative publicity of the media. That's what elected Trump. That's why I voted for him. I wasn't going to vote for him. I thought he was an asshole. But I voted for him precisely because of the massive negative publicity he was getting from the media. I said, wow, somebody really doesn't like this guy. You know, and so I say, yeah, I'm going to vote for him. You bet. No Russian troll convinced me to vote for Trump. It was the mainstream media that convinced me to vote for Trump, okay? So they convinced people to vote for Trump by attacking him in the way they kept attacking him. They would keep attacking him. They would never end. And then when he got elected, they went berserk. The British, but who went berserk? The British went berserk. The British made it very clear after his election that he either had to be removed, assassinated, or forced to submit to their program of going to war with Russia and China. And they haven't succeeded after 15 months in getting him to submit. And they haven't succeeded yet in getting the war going. But they got a war prepared in Ukraine. And that's very serious. They got the Ukrainian government financed it and arming it and getting it ready to invade the part of Ukraine that doesn't want to be Ukrainianized. It doesn't want a bunch of Nazis coming in and killing them. And now they're going to send this military that they're reorganizing. The U.S. is playing a key role. The Canadian military is playing a key role. And they're going to try to invade and massacre these Russians in that Donbass area. And they're hoping that that will provoke a Russian military response, because the Russian population will not accept having thousands, tens of thousands of Russians killed in the Donbass. These are Russians. These are not Ukrainians. These are Russians living in Ukraine. All right? They don't identify with Ukraine as a racist, as the white super race that, you know, these Nazis that got $5 billion from the National Endowment of Democracy, as Victoria Nuland once has testified before Congress, they believe that they're the purest white race on the planet. They actually believe that. They worked with Hitler. They consider Russians to be impure Asiatic genetics in their, and you know, and this is what we're supporting, right? This is, you know, these are the children of the children that were part of Hitler's operation in that war. That's who we're supporting, right? And they still venerate Hitler. You know, I mean that's what we're supporting. Well, what's going on here? And they're about to go to war, and they're going to try to trigger a situation where Putin has to send his troops in, and then that becomes the basis then for the next phase of the war. But more importantly, it's about breaking Europe, because Europe, the population of Europe, the population of Eastern Europe, they never got anything. They never got anything out of joining the euro, the European Union. They got nothing. They got less than nothing. They're treated like Mexico. So Russia, China, their economic, well, China's bringing in the Belt and Road, and that's the only thing that has any future. And they're being told that, no, you can't work with China on the Belt and Road. You can't work with Russia and the European and the Eurasian Economic Union. No, you can't do that. But having a war is very important to keeping control over that area, because most of those people have had enough of the European Union. It doesn't work. It's just there to bail out the financial system. It's there to keep economic development from occurring, just like here. So that's where we are. We're in a global revolution in which the empire and the oligarchy are on their last legs. They have no future because the full industrial development of the planet is not a place the oligarchy wants to live in anyhow. That's not their world. They can't be an oligarchy in a scientifically progressive, continually scientific progressive world. They can't. There's no room for an oligarchy because you're bringing generation up to be more intelligent, more educated, more developed than the previous generation. You can't have an oligarchy in that situation. It's the end of the oligarchy, whether it was, from Babylon to Britain. Thousands and thousands of years of control and manipulation is coming to an end. And we're about to enter a new period in human uh, planetary history where scientific technological progress and the general welfare of mankind dominates the, the political process.